Sounds like a plan. All right, Jasper, you are up next.
Awesome. Hi, guys. So excited to be here talking with you. And today, what we're going to do, I'm going to be talking to you more about the C in PAC, which is concepts of print. And we're going to be taking a look at how to connect that to the anchor text when we're implementing that and what that looks like in this e-learning environment. So to start, I wanted to make sure that everyone was kind of familiar with the terms, what like an anchor text is. So that's referring to a book that we read every week. We usually do multiple reads of that with our students. And then also I wanted to push, that's like where we're pushing in our vocabulary, we're modeling like our thoughts as readers. And then later, you know, that's where we pull out that vocabulary that we've been pushing in throughout the week. And then concepts of print, like I said, was the C in PAC time. And that's where we're focusing really on this session where we're looking at text features when we're reading an actual written language and noticing kind of and identifying the things that are within that. So that's what we're going to be taking a look at today. And I wanted to say that I know that right now we utilize the Cox Campus resources all the time at our school, and our team does. And we kind of weave them in throughout the day. It's not just like only at PAC time do we focus on concepts of print. So, you know, we might weave those in and use them during our morning meeting when we're doing like a morning question, or different other parts of the day. We'll when we're like maybe making a list of something, we'll be pushing that in as well at another point in there during the day. But it's difficult right now because we don't get that face-to-face interaction with our kids like we used to because of the e-learning, obviously. So I wanted to kind of give you guys an idea of how you can do that concepts of print with your students virtually. And usually like we'll push that in with our story reads too. But the thing you have to be careful with when you're doing concepts of print with your story reads is that it sucks up a lot of time. And we know that with our young students that their attention spans are very short. I mean, we're working with 3, 4, 5-year-olds most of the time, and you only have a limited amount of time that you can really have them focused on an activity. So for this e-learning, what I chose to do is I actually made a concepts of print that was based on our anchor text right here, The Giving Tree, one of my favorite childhood stories. And you're going to see how I do a separate video where I don't actually read the story. It's just taking a look at that anchor text that the students get familiar with throughout the week and just pointing out some of the text features on the outside of the book. So we can go ahead and queue up that video and take a look and see how that looks.
Make sure I'm off mute here. Here we go.
Hi friends, Mr. Bloomingdale here, and today we are going to be looking at some concepts of print. We're going to be looking at the different features, the different things that we notice on the outside of our story today before we take a look inside. And the story actually happens to be one of my favorites, which is The Giving Tree by Shel Silverstein. And you can tell here on the front of the book, there are different colors for these words. This white colored words right here, these are actually the title of the book, and it says The Giving Tree. Those are 3 words right there, and I can tell that they are not stuck all together. They have spaces between each of those words. The Giving Tree. And just like that, there's also the author down here, which has 3 separate words as well. It says by Shel Silverstein. And those are also, like I said, 3 separate words. I see the one on top, the one in the middle, the one at the bottom. And these are all vertical. They go from the top to the bottom of the page. And so this was the front cover of the book. It gave us a lot of really good information. But the front cover, this one actually is a little hard. It protects what's inside. But just like this book has a front cover, if you flip it over, there's a back cover. And there's Shel Silverstein right there. So the back cover, sometimes they'll have a picture of the author, or maybe they'll tell you a little bit about themselves or why they wrote the book. This author decided to put a picture. And the back cover also protects what's inside. And there's one more part of the outside of the book I want us to take a look at today. Another feature of this book is right here. If you turn the book sideways, it's a very thin part of the book, and that is called the spine. Now, you have a spine in your own body. reach back here and feel your neck. You can feel the bones in your neck. They go vertical, just like that tree we were looking at. It goes up and down your body, and it actually holds your body together. Just like this spine of this book holds all the pages together that are inside. And it has some important information as well. Right here, it says Silverstein, which is the author's last name. And it gives us the title of the book again, The Giving Tree. There are 3 separate words, and they have spaces between those words again. So I hope you enjoyed taking a look at the outside of the book that we just looked at. However, if you'd like to see the inside of the book and hear the story, you can check out another one of my videos where we actually do read the book, The Giving Tree by Shel Silverstein. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Bye.
All right. So that was one of our videos that we wanted to share. Jasper, did you want to speak on that a little bit more before we transition to the other video, or tell us what you were thinking?
I was going to say, so that's an example of concepts of print activity for the anchor text. And the next thing that I wanted to show you was, obviously that's really looking at the outside, pointing out that the spaces between the words is very important for kids so that they can distinguish the, and get that, figure out how they're going to do that, one-to-one correspondence as they're learning to be readers. But in this next one, what I want to point out and then draw your attention to is that it's going to be a real-time text or an informational text that also relates back to the Giving Tree. So obviously the Giving Tree is about a tree. So you're going to see this book, Tell Me Tree, where we're going to point out some different features that you might see. And so just notice as I'm doing this next one that I refer back to the original text so that you kind of build that context for the students, and then pointing out how I point out the similarities and difference between the text features of the 2 books.
Okay. So we're going to go ahead and share the screen again and play.
Hi friends, it's Mr. Bloomingdale again, and today we are going to be taking a look at some concepts of print again, and this one is actually going to be for a different kind of book. So last time we looked at the outside of the book, we were noticing some of the features there, and that book was called The Giving Tree by Shel Silverstein. And this book, it's not about a real character. There's not a real living tree that's handing apples to little boys, dropping them down for them and giving away their branches and their trunk. They don't really do that. Trees usually just sit there and they may blow in the wind, but they can't really talk or do anything. And so this story is what we would call a fiction story. It's a fiction. Good. Now, there are different kinds of stories, though, that are made to give us information. And so this right here is an informational text or a nonfiction text. We learn things from this book that are real facts, real things. Well, let's take a look at this one and see if it's a little bit different than that other story, The Giving Tree. This story has a title as well, and it is called Tell Me Tree. And that also has 3 words, just like The Giving Tree. Let's verify that. 1, 2, 3. I can tell that they're separate words because they have spaces between the words right there. And this also has an author at the bottom, and their name is Gail Givens. And there's 2 separate words because I see the space between them right there. And this is the front cover, just like The Giving Tree has a front cover on it. This story also has a front cover that protects what's inside, and a back cover as well that protects what's inside. And this back cover actually is interesting because it has another text feature we haven't talked about yet, something that we can notice. So right here, this plant, it has a beautiful pink bud on it. And at the bottom, you might notice right underneath it, there is a word, and that actually says magnolia. This is a magnolia plant or a magnolia tree. And so this is a bud or a flower that is growing on that tree. So these words down here are called labels. And they help us know what something is. They might place it next to something or even draw a line to something, and that shows us exactly what it's telling us what it is. So it has front cover, a back cover, and again, that very important part of the book that holds it all together, that very thin, skinny part of the book right here, called the spine. And it gives us the title again, Tell Me Tree. And if you look up It's Boys and Girls, it also has the author's last name, Gibbons. Now, boys and girls, I did want to open this up just to show you another text feature that's inside. And with informational text, what you'll notice is books, when you go inside, they have titles inside as well. Like this book, the title is Seeds. It's all about seeds. So I know that I'm not going to learn about other things on this page. It's going to be about seeds. And it's big and bold right here. And there's different seeds on this page. And I'm noticing that there are labels again right next to some of the pictures. Like this is a white seed. And this down here is a silver maple. And this one down here is a red oak seed. There's so many more labels. You can see they're all down there right next to what they're telling you about. Now, girls, over here on this page, you'll notice that this one is showing one of those seeds that is growing. And this text feature actually uses what I was telling you earlier. You have a leaf, and then you see that little black line? It's pointing to the leaf. So that is a very good label because it shows you right where you need to look with your eyes so that you know exactly what it's telling you about. All right, boys and girls, so those were some of the text features or the concepts of print from this story. We're not going to read everything that's inside. We were just taking a look at the outside and some of those special things that help us as readers to know what the story is about. So thanks for joining me today, and have a wonderful one.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and transition back. Jasper, that was a great treat. Thank you for sharing with us. I know there are probably people out there with many, many questions, and I have a question, particularly for concepts of print. What type of setting in the classroom would you most likely do a concepts of print activity? Can you share with us?
Yeah, so I mean, like I said, we usually weave these in throughout the day. One area that I always have my concepts of print is I do a morning question in the, on the board in the morning, and that's more of a whole group thing. But when you're modeling these parts of the books, kids want to be up close so they can really see, you know, what's going on, and so that would be more easily done in a small group setting to model that kind of concepts of print. And then it also, you've probably read that story during your story time. So then you're bringing it back to the small group, and so it's in context. You know, the kids have seen it before, and they want to get a closer look at it. So
that's great. I'm glad that you share that, because like you said, you do concepts of print all throughout the day, and informally you do it with your morning message, but you do your more explicit, let's look at this, like in your small group instruction, and they can get a little bit more into that, right? So that's pretty amazing. And this is another question, so I know you already said it, but just to clarify, so you wouldn't do this particular, would you do this particular one, concepts of print, before you actually do a story read, or would you break that up?
So normally what I would suggest, and actually I wrote this down to mention to you guys, is it is a lot to put all that information in before you do a read and then go into the read. I mean, we know that our attention span of our kids at this age is very limited. So I suggest doing it as a separate activity. But if you have to do it during your story read, if that's really the only time that works in your classroom, because you have to do what's best for your class, I would say really only focus on maybe one or two of those text features each time you read. And so you can kind of weave it in there, but I would not try and do all of them like I was trying to show you in the video. That would be more of a small group activity for that.
Yes, definitely. You get a lot of more bang for your buck in that small group time. You could differentiate and provide clarity, and progress monitoring of different concepts. And so what are some ways you really understand or know that your children are grasping these concepts? Are there any kind of like progress monitoring tools that you kind of use, or what kind of tips would you give us for that?
I use a lot of matrices. In my class, I'll like go ahead and already have a piece of paper. Like we have like our anything list with our children's names on them. They're kind of blank, and I'll just write down the skills I'm looking for so I can put a quick check. I might even invite the kids I might bring some other, you know, if for example, I was doing this and I was trying to really, you know, check who had that knowledge down. I might have some other informational texts about trees that I've already looked at, and I would kind of give those to the students in the small group. I might have them kind of either that or pair them up and have them talk with their friends about it, and I'm just listening and maybe checking off what I'm seeing they're doing. You know, so that's one way I could get that information.
Thank you so much for sharing. I don't know if anyone else wants to share a little bit more about concepts of print, but I know we have some resources on Cox Campus that we can highlight in a second, but just anyone else would like to share anything, you can go ahead and ask now. I've asked all my questions.
I think something, you know, that you're kind of touching on is how do you know that they're retaining these skills? And I think, you know, whether we're talking about phonemic awareness or alphabet knowledge or concepts of print, you know, and Jasper's touching on this as well, the main reason or the main way that we understand that they're grasping these things is through conversation. Like, yes, we have matrices and we do these things, and that was an impeccable example because it's important to be able to remember, okay, I can quickly check off these things, but having those constant conversations, asking 2 and 3 questions, it really becomes a part of their vocabulary. When you hear them talking about, hey, Mr. Bloomingdale, this is the spine, or Miss Melton talking to a student, you know, and they say, I know that dog begins with the D sound because I know that because my eyes are closed, I can still hear it. Or alphabet recognition, I know this is this letter because it has a smooth curve on the bottom. And really having those conversations with students is just a huge way that we really know that we can tell the children are learning.
Yeah. And you know what? I noticed that you were doing a particular type of talk. You know, I heard you kind of like talking to yourself and kind of narrating what you were doing. And so can you share a little bit about that specifically too, or just what that's called?
Sure. So self-talk, I guess. No, I mean, just being in an environment where, and I do it for myself, I can be very forgetful. And so I find myself having dialogue out loud, even in an e-learning environment, because you're kind of getting used to now talking to or having a story read in front of an empty audience or your dogs or your cats or your kids. And so, but really trying to model that self-talk, that dialogue, and so that students are really learning through you modeling that to them. And you know, giving students an open space and forum to do that is something we encourage. And it's, you know, it can feel a little funny at first, but the kids are just captivated and engaged, and they're learning all of the time. And I think hearing you do it, and they love you, and they care about you, and they respect you, and they really want to please and and they're eager and curious to learn, that kind of dialogue is incredibly helpful.
Go ahead, Jess.
I wanted to add in that another thing that you had, another feature you had in your video that you showed, Katie, was that you messed up intentionally, or I'm sorry, your brother messed up.
Which happens all the time, naturally, anyways, to me, all the time.
But kids love that when they get to see a teacher or an adult mess up. I mean, including that in a video that you're sending out, and then, oh, whoops, that was wrong. It's actually this. They love that. It really helps to captivate their attention as well. So. Yeah,
absolutely right. I think that if anyone can, you know, talk to themselves, then they can talk out loud, because the benefits that children can get from that, they learn how to communicate and organize their thoughts, and it just helps them put everything that we push into action. And so it's really great to push in that informal, skills at certain times of the day just by talking out loud. So I'm so glad that you guys expounded on that. I want to kind of share some resources for concepts of print before we go back to Danette. She's going to wrap it up. I know, but I want to make sure that I kind of share just resources that we have on Cox Campus. So here are 2 that I have right here. You might not be able to see it that much. Oops, go back. You might not be able to go back. There it is. One is called the Concepts of Print Teaching Aid. So it really breaks down a lot of the different things that we were talking about with regards to concepts of print and how to execute that in your classroom and small groups during transitions, functional print. And then also too, we have the Show Me, Guide Me, Let Me Try. And so that's another way that we intentionally push in these concepts for PAC, alphabet knowledge, concepts of print, and phonological awareness is by modeling, scaffolding, and by making sure that we kind of watch and sit back and see them put into action independently. And that could probably be even in your, their center time, or just independent practice can look a little different. And so I just want to kind of plug that in there. And now, Nanette, you're going to take it away.
Okay. So you just heard all parts of PAC, and these 3 parts are vital when it comes to preparing our students for kindergarten. When we are teaching PAC, like Jasper mentioned, we just don't teach it in a whole group setting. We revisit these skills throughout the day. We will take one part of PAC and, for example, create a sound sort activity and use it for a small group lesson. Then we will use all 3 parts and create activities for centers. We may have students like writing letters in the sand in the at the sensory table, or make a list in the writing center, or read a menu in the dramatic play area. We have taken this out into the hallway, say on our way to the playground. We will have students to do a letter search where they are looking for a certain letter by its features. So, I mean, we have done, these skills like throughout the day, even during transitions. We may have students to clap out their names and tell us how many parts in their name, or if their name starts with a letter. We will have them to do certain tasks throughout the day just to get these skills through. And what we're doing, we're taking these activities and doing them intentionally. So our students will not just know these skills, but be able to apply them as they're having fun learning them. And so these activities and many more are on Cox campus, and some have been modified so they can be reinforced at home with families. So please take a look at these, because they are there. And especially for the summer, these activities are there, and we want you to utilize them. And last but not least, please encourage your families to read to their children. We know that reading will stimulate their imagination. It will also develop their language and listening skills and build vocabulary skills. So we want you to encourage your families to please read to their little ones. And let's see, I do want to mention a few other activities. I just thought about these. Okay. There are so many games that parents can do without materials, like the I Spy game. The parents can actually play these games with their little ones in the car, just having them to look for a certain item that begins with the K sound, or looking at a sign and see if they can find a certain letter. So there are so many activities that you can find on Cox campus.
And the kids, they're just playing a game. They don't even realize it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's a wonderful way to extend these skills into the summer really informally. And so these skills are so important because they're foundational skills, pre-literacy skills that are really critical for just helping them build those blocks to when they're ready to read. And so we want to make sure that all these things are together and rock solid. So thank you so much for sharing those ideas. And if you guys have any other ideas that you want to share, feel free to do that as well. We do have some Cox campus resources, and you know what, Jasper, I just realized I didn't get a chance to show the implementation chart that for concepts of print. So I'm gonna give just take a second and do that before we transition to our next question and answers. And then who knows, we might have time for your video, Katie. So let me go ahead and go to this here and share. So right here, what you're looking at is Concepts of Print implementation plan that is now on Cox campus. It's aligned with GELDS, TSG, WSO. So you'll see that you can use this during planning when you're trying to figure out what particular skills you want to kind of target. So you can read this chart from left to right. We start with print carries a message, and then we have specific goals that you can kind of go to next. next. Then you go from that to organization of reading materials, and then organization of print. So there's so many different ways you can really tackle this concept in your classroom, and doing, like you said, guys, in an intentional way. So you can go to Cox Campus to find that resource as well. So I want to make sure that I didn't forget about that, because that's definitely something that you want in your toolbox. I used to put these materials, because as a teacher, I've taught preschool, pre-K, put these things in a sleeve protector, because I was like, I had to keep it safe, because I had a plan with my implementation plans. And so it's just really an essential thing. Once you start to get in the swing of it, it's everything works seamless. You just know where you need to go next, and then you can come up with all the others, activities and such. So anything else? I know we are right at 4:47, so it's time for question and answers. So let's see if we have any questions that we can answer right now. I'm just looking out here in the comments. And if not, we can share some more information just about concepts of print, or any of the other things that we've kind of discussed with the other series. So just feel free to just let us know and gather your thoughts. I'm going to give everyone a couple minutes to think about that. I'm scrolling through the comments here. All right, so I see some questions here. Jasper, can you talk about why you teach concepts of print? Someone said.
Why? Okay, so why do I teach that? Mm-hmm. I think it's crucial for us to model just how reading works for kids. I mean, obviously, like moving left to right in print, it really helps for their, as they are becoming readers. I mean, we watch them through pre-K go from, not even be able to write their name to eventually becoming readers and doing their own writing. So modeling that for them is crucial so that they can feel confident to take those first steps. I think, it's important to model that left to right motion as we're writing, top to bottom, spaces between words. I wanted to mention too, when I was talking about space between words, a really fun activity that my kids love is I print out little space people, and we have little magnets. And so when I have my morning question at the beginning of the day, I'll have a random, one of the first things I ever teach our kids is random. The word random. And so it's random, and we're only going to pick some, and so then we pick out the name out of a little cup, and that kid gets to come up and put the spacemen or the spacewomen or whatever up there in between each word. And they love doing that. And so getting to teach those things and getting to see that words are separated, that also helps when, like when we're clapping out sentence, or like when we're clapping out words and sentences even without the text, when we're doing that phonological awareness part, just helps them to see that when they're doing those claps, that's where the spaces are, and it all comes together in the end. So
thank you so much for sharing. Let's see, someone does have another question down here. Oh, this is funny. Are there any fees for Cox Campus courses? Before I go ahead and say my spiel, I would just ask you guys, are there any fees? Do you pay for these courses?
No, ma'am.
Absolutely not. They're 100% free. They are free. Yeah. And so it's really important that you share these resources with educators, families near and far, because, we are just really fortunate to be able to have just the funding to be able to share these resources that are research-based with you all. And so we want you to make sure you have everything that you need to equip you to empower children as they learn to read. So that's why you should get an account if you don't. Explore this. It's self-paced. You can self-pace yourself with these courses, and you get a certificate at the end. If you're in Georgia, you're in luck, because then you can get credits right from the start. So we really suggest and recommend that you just explore it yourself, because I can't even say enough about how great it is to have this resource. So that was a good question, but it's absolutely 100% free. So,
and it's user friendly.
Yes.
Yes.
User friendly. Yes.
And it works. It works.
It really does.
really does. And there's so many different things you can do there too. There's resources you can tap into. And so I know that if you get stuck, you can always, reach out and ask a question, and someone will be able to comment and help you out. We have a community area there on Cox campus, so you can collaborate with other teachers. So it's really, it's a place that keeps on giving. So thank you for asking that question, because it's a really good one. So anyone else have a question? And if not, we have an opportunity to share Katie's video that really shows you how to execute some things with regards to alphabet knowledge. I don't want to say too much, but if you want to introduce it a little bit more, you can. And I'm going to go get us set up for sharing it. Okay.
I think I was noticing earlier, somebody asked, how would you, if a school is hooked on the idea of a letter a week, how do you incorporate PAC into that? And I think that a way, because we do separate the skills of phonemic awareness and alphabet knowledge and concepts of print, a good way, and feel free, team, to jump in to kind of incorporate that into PAC, is if I know, and the video coming up is the letter X, is the letter of the week, then really focusing on how to form that letter, using real and found materials, letting them do a magic chalkboard. If your school loves doing a letter a week, but focusing on how to form that letter. What does it look like? Straight lines? Are they big lines? Are they small lines? And giving them the opportunity to form that, and all of those activities that Ms. Milton was talking about and Jasper was talking about, all those things that you can incorporate in the classroom during small group time and center time. That's a great way. Whole group, throughout the day, even outside. This example of the video is actually outside. And I'm using sticks to form the letter X. So any way you can pack it into your day is maybe a great way to incorporate the letter of the week if you want to focus on that letter formation. Anybody else have an idea too?
I was going to say, like with your video, you also had other letters that they were learning, like letters they previously learned. It's also a great time to cycle through those as well, so they can see how they compare to other letters as well in the alphabet. So it's not, I know you are focusing on that letter that week then, but you also are reviewing and keeping fresh all those other ones that they've learned throughout the year as well. So.
For sure. You definitely want to always make sure you kind of review, like Jasper said, and just know anything you find on Cox campus, we are aligned with best practice, and so the research. And so this can really be helpful. But you're in for a treat with Katie's video. So I'm going to go ahead and set us up for that, you guys, and play. So stay tuned. And here we go.
Hello again, it's Dr. Bell, and today we are going to be learning how to form the capital letter X. So I have a couple different ways to form the capital letter X. First, I have some chalk here, and the way we're going to form the capital letter X is with two big slanted lines. So when I start the capital letter X, I start at the smiley face right here, and I do big slanted line down from the top to the bottom, frog jump up, big slanted line from the top to the bottom to the other side, and that is how you create the capital letter X. Another way that you can form the capital letter X is by using some found materials in your environment. So I have two sticks here, and I'm wondering, how can we form the capital letter X? So I know it's two big slanted lines. So I start at the top of the box. I can do a big line slanted from the top to the bottom corner, and take my other stick, frog jump up, big line slanted down from the top corner to the bottom corner. And that is the capital letter X. So those are two different ways you can form the capital letter X. I wonder how many things in your environment you can use to also form the capital letter X. Have fun with those big slanted lines.
Fantastic.
You did such a good job at that.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
Behind the scenes is how many times you film it, and when you forget, you're like, oh no, I have got to mention this, but really trying to make it user friendly for, I may not have chalk or pens or markers or paper, but I do know I have sticks outside, or I have a water bottle. I know I've used a water bottle to even form it on the cement or the sidewalk, just different letters. Fun ways to whatever you've got is what you can use, and hopefully even also touching on that piece of supporting learning at home this summer too, just maybe any way we can support families and, and providing them with resources as well.
And I saw that you were using particular verbal cues when you were describing the letters. I mean, do you come up with those verbal cues yourself? Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
We utilize in correlation, a lot of different resources, and that verbiage comes from Handwriting Without Tears. Yeah. So right. And finding something that works, for me to remember, because again, I am very forgetful, incorporating making mistakes, but I think that verbiage and using something that's consistent and easy to understand is helpful too. So that's where that comes from. Really not reinventing the wheel, but just kind of borrowing from other teachers, looking on Cox campus at the resources and be like, that's an incredible idea. I'm going to use it and kind of give it my own teacher spin, because we all have our own personalities and we have the way we like to teach things. And, watching Miss Milton and, Jasper and just seeing everybody, Mary Carey at the Cox, campus, just all these people and taking their ideas and just, spinning them as your own is just incredibly helpful.
Yeah. It really is. I mean, yes, even at the speech school, as a teacher, we have a lot of occupational therapists that are at our school, and we use those verbal cues. But if you have to make up your own. I would say the best thing to do is be consistent. So know what you're saying, because the little guys, they really depend on these verbal cues to either retrieve the letter name for some of those that have difficulty with that retrieval piece. So it just goes hand in hand with a lot of things. So I was just like, oh, tell us more about that, because that's an action-packed way to help with that letter alphabet knowledge piece.
Yeah. I did want to add in real quick. I just you kind of touched on this when you were talking about, how many times did you have to record that to get it right or whatever.
Yeah.
I actually miss that part of being physically there with the kids, is the ability to mess up and use it as a learning moment. I do miss that so much, being face to face with them, because of that. Like, you don't always get it right, even as the teacher, and they love that, and it's a great learning moment. So.
And also normalizing that too. It's okay to make mistakes. I make mistakes all the time, and we try again. And you hear again that verbal cue and hearing the vocabulary and talking to students. It's okay. I'll just try again. And I'm like, oh yes, like pull my heartstrings. I love it. So yeah, I definitely miss that too. I definitely making that connection.
Well, you know what, you guys, you are wonderful. I see another question that we have from Cynthia, I think at Helms. Her question is, or she has a statement that says, my school does not like worksheets. How do you all feel about that?
I mean, I try to avoid worksheets as much as possible. With me, I know in my classroom what works usually best in ours is kinesthetic learning, hands-on materials for kids. Whether it be, if it's going to be forming the letter A, I'm using beans or noodles or something to make it, rather than just writing it out, and repetition and everything, is actually getting something that's hands-on that they can touch. I find that that's more effective for, at least in my classroom. So I don't really use worksheets.
I know. But that was really a great question, because I know a lot of people have that question, but multisensory modalities are definitely the way to go for these little kids. You can see it, move it, hear it, touch it, you're in the right zone. And so the sky's the limit. So with those materials, like you said, you can use anything to make it a multisensory activity, but it's definitely great for this age. So I'm just looking to see if there are any other comments. And if not, guess what? It's 5 o'clock, and this concludes our teacher talk.
Where did all the time go?
I know. They tell us that, we're having fun. time flies. So I guess we had a blast, and we just really thank you guys for tuning in and interacting with us. And this has been truly a pleasure, but we can continue this conversation on Cox Campus Community. So just join us. And if you don't have anyone that's a part of our Cox Campus Community Facebook group here, tell them to come on in, and we'll accept them a part of our club here. But it's really good to have you guys here. So be safe, and thank you so much for engaging with us today. Okay, so you guys, till next time.
Thanks for coming in, guys, today. Bye.
Bye.
All right, bye-bye. Oh, you know what? We will say bye.